You know what? I got an idea. How about you guys beat the zombie take out of each other, and the winner gets an exclusive interview with me? What's up? Welcome to episode 254 of Zombie Takeout,
Zombie Takeout.
the B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John, and the more observant among you may have noticed that voice that said Zombie Takeout a moment ago, the one that isn't me, didn't sound like Scotto. And that's because Scotto needed another week off, so friend of the show, Haunt Valley creator, the lovely and talented Jen Miller has graciously agreed to join me this week and fill in for him. Hello, Jen.
Hello.
And it's an interesting week that this happened because this week's movie is really well suited for you.
Oh, yeah. And I had seen it before, and
Mhm.
then when you suggested it, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the perfect movie for me.
Yeah. Before we get to this week's movie, we've got a little bit of listener submitted, and it's another voicemail. After 6+ years, this number is finally paying off. This is from another old friend of the show. Let's take a listen.
Uncle John and Scotto, Roberto here, formerly from Trailer Clash. I'm wanting to just check in with you guys. It's been a while, but wanted to let you know that I have been diligently listening to the show and enjoying every minute of it. Thank you so much for your ongoing reviews of great and not so great movies. After your discussion of I, Frankenstein and your confusion regarding Michael York, I looked through the zombie takeout list and noticed that Logan's Run is not on your list. So if you are looking for movies to add to the list of movies to check out in the future, Michael York is a serendipitous person to or actor to be talking about, because Logan's Run fits right in your wheelhouse. So I hope you consider adding Logan's Run to the list, and I hope you consider and I hope you continue to do such a good job with your podcast. Take care, guys. Great listening to you, and I hope you are enjoying your summer. Bye-bye.
That is a great idea. I'm kind of ashamed we hadn't thought of that by now. Logan's Run is one of those movies that I won't say it was formative for me, but it's one of those I remember seeing as a kid and being kind of disturbed by. So I'm a little surprised I hadn't thought of it by now. But we will definitely be adding it. I don't think we have anything after the upcoming trilogy, so we might crowbar it in there. Alright, so without any further ado, on to this week's movie, which is from 2013, Horns. And of course that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Internal Monologues. Sometimes they're best kept that way.
And also sponsored by donuts. It's like the devil you can put in your mouth. So, it opens up. Beautiful scene. They're laying on a blankets, and the couple, Ig and Marin. And
She asks something of an inappropriate question.
what is it? Oh, she says, "Oh, are you getting horny?" And he says, "Oh, I'm getting warmer." And then they give this really cheesy line, which I hate, which is really the only line that I hate in the movie, which is, it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna love you for the rest of my life.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
gonna love you no, just love me for the rest of mine." Like, they said that in 1996's Phenomenon, and it was cheesy
okay.
then, and it's cheesy now. But anyway, that it quickly descends, though, and he kind of goes downward, and then suddenly we're back to reality. He's on the kitchen floor, passed out, and then he's kind of trying to stagger up, and we quickly find out that he is being blamed by the whole town for Marin's murder. And and he is just beside himself, and at times he's even doubting his own innocence, but for the most part he's trying to proclaim his innocence, but the whole town is convinced he is guilty.
Well, then he kind of stumbles through his life, and people accuse him, and he's kind of shunned by the town. And then one day, as if it was the writer of Metamorphosis, I can't think of his name. He wakes up one morning and
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And he wakes up one morning and suddenly discovers he has horns coming out of his forehead. And he's understandably freaked out about that.
Yeah.
And he goes to the woman that she kind of seems like the town slut, to put it not so nicely, but she is sitting out in the living room and, do you see anything? And she sees the horns. She doesn't seem particularly concerned about it, but she sees them, and then she's immediately focused on the fact that, asking for permission to eat all the donuts.
Mhm.
And this seems to be true for a lot of the characters, that it not only has them like confessing their sins, but makes them want to act out on them. As he says later in the movie, it's like that, I seem to be bringing out the worst in people lately.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what happens when he gets around anybody. And she's the first person. Um, and uh, then he kind of takes off, and he's meeting one person after another. And
It's a very interesting incident in a doctor's office.
yes, in the doctor's office.
And
And
then he proceeds to use this newfound ability to figure out who actually killed Marin.
yes, I like the whole concept that because he embraces the horns and he embraces the evil that everyone sees in him, he's able to bring about the truth.
Yeah.
And so, um,
And the hilarity ensues, of course.
yes,
Just to put a
basically,
cap around the plot summary. Now, one thing that struck me early on in this movie is the accents. The four main cast members,
Yeah,
Ig, his brother, his friend
yeah,
Lee, and Marin, are
yeah,
all played by British actors
yeah, yeah.
doing these horribly cheesy American accents.
I feel like they were trying,
Well, they were trying, and I've never heard a Brit do an American accent convincingly.
and maybe for me, especially Daniel Radcliffe threw me off just because he's the
Well,
one
yeah,
that I'm
because you're
familiar
accustomed to
with.
him. Yeah.
And, I can see that he's trying,
Hmm.
but he's trying in a way where he's like, I'm going to do an American accent, but I am still going to enunciate these words correctly.
And it kind of ended up sounding like this odd cross between Canadian and Bostonian.
Yeah.
And all I could think was it's kind of fitting that, the Brits are finally getting their revenge for ages of Americans doing horrible
Terrible
British
English
accents.
accent. That's what it is. It's a conspiracy. He was doing it on purpose.
Uh-huh.
You're gonna see. We're gonna show you how stupid you sound.
Nah. Now, I did like that it kind of just jumped to the aftermath of Marin's killing. It
Mhm.
didn't show us much of before. Actually, it didn't show us any of before. We thought it did,
Oh
but
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
get to that. And also, there was no long credit sequence, which I always love when a movie doesn't give me that. It just has a nice little title screen, you know,
No.
nice little clever, transition with a cigarette lighter, and that was it. No long list of names. We get that at the end, of course, because,
Yeah.
you need the credits, but, you know,
Oh
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
don't like having to sit through them in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's the kind of movie where you're,
Mhm.
arriving late, time to get
Yeah. Well,
settled.
yeah, true, true. You don't have much of an opportunity to show up late with this one, yeah. Now, I had two big issues with this movie.
Okay.
I couldn't stand Ig. He irritated the hell out of me.
Oh, okay.
He
Well,
was just kind of twitchy and douchey and just kind of whined a lot. I mean,
yeah,
granted, he's in an unfortunate situation, but the way he
yeah,
handled it just kind of put me off. And
yeah.
I never for a second thought that he was guilty.
Yeah, I didn't really think he was. I mean, I feel like they tried to put in a few little. Well, first time I saw it, I'm like, he didn't do it, did he? But
I mean, maybe it's because it's Daniel Radcliffe. Maybe it's because I read too much in some summary somewhere, but I just never thought that he was guilty.
yeah,
And the fact that I didn't like Ig would have
yeah.
made it work really well if I did at some point think he was guilty.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he, I don't know. He didn't really get on my nerves. I have.
It's just
Yeah,
personal thing for some
yeah. I
reason,
mean, it
and
could.
it's not Daniel Radcliffe. I've seen him in another number of other roles, and I like him as an actor. But
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
mhm.
I don't know.
Also, why was there the sudden trumpet solo?
The sudden trumpet solo.
Egg goes to his parents' place to talk about what's going on with him being accused of Marin's rape and murder. And he's sitting
Mhm.
outside, kind of collecting his thoughts, and out walks his brother with a trumpet and just plays this random trumpet solo.
I don't know. And he was like always with the trumpet. And I know that when he went to go talk with his father, and his father was saying, I could always relate to, his brother more because we
Mm,
had music in
yeah,
common. But I don't really know any significance
mm.
beyond that.
It kind of seemed like, and I don't know if
You
the
know,
actor was actually playing it. I suspect he wasn't, but if he was,
yeah,
that would explain it because he just wanted to take this little trumpet solo and show off.
yeah. I can play the
It just
trumpet.
kind of had this feeling like those early '90s movies that have that random music sequence for no reason.
Mm,
Kind of felt like that. Though it
yeah.
was nice to see James Remar, who played his father. He was in The Warriors.
Uh,
And I can't think of anything else I've
I
seen him
didn't
in since then.
recognize him.
Yeah, well, it's
Uh,
been 30 years since The Warriors.
yeah, I didn't recognize him. Now I need to go back but I knew he looked familiar.
If you remember The Warriors, he was the one hitting on the female cop in the park.
Okay.
If you remember the scene where she arrests
I'm
him.
just gonna have to go back, but
Yeah.
no, but I'm sure it is. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, no, and he looked familiar.
It was also nice to see David Morse, who plays Marin's father.
Oh yeah, yeah, no,
He's a great actor. Really
yeah,
intense in this. He normally doesn't do that kind of intensity. So that was an
yeah.
interesting surprise.
But I think the role called for it. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely. He played it beautifully. I'm just not
yeah,
accustomed to seeing him in those kinds of roles. So it was a very nice surprise.
absolutely.
Now, speaking of intensity, and this really, I think, speaks to the issue I have with Ig, and I can't blame Radcliffe because the problem is he didn't really seem to pull off the kind of seething anger that Ig should have.
Hmm. Okay.
And we know Daniel Radcliffe can do seething anger because he did it for the last 3 Harry Potter movies.
Yeah. I don't know. I read that Sheila LaBeouf was
Yes.
originally cast in that
Hmm.
role, and
And
well, that would have annoyed me.
yeah,
To
whatever
be
issues I may
honest.
have with Radcliffe's performance, we definitely dodged a bullet.
I think so. But um and I read that also this was based on a book
Mhm.
by Stephen King's
Yeah,
son.
Joe Hill. I didn't know
Yeah.
he had a son, let alone that his son was a writer.
Yeah, apparently. And so but I can kind of see some of it
Oh, definitely.
uh
There's a
in
clear
there.
influence.
Yeah.
Because King played a lot with moral ambiguity. It's
Yeah,
kind of a hallmark of
exactly.
King's work.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, no, and all that everybody has their inner demons,
Hmm. And this
that
is
are
all about moral ambiguity.
yeah. And but I read one of the things I wish they had kept was that Lee,
Mm.
when he had the cherry bomb, he blew off a couple of fingers,
Yeah.
but in the book he lost an eye. And
Oh.
I feel like that would have been a better, like, because there's a lot of symbolism in the
Hmm.
movie, and like I just feel like that would I don't understand why. I mean, there's no symbolism to losing a couple of fingers. There would
Yeah.
have been to losing an eye,
Hmm. I think the makeup challenge would have been tricky, and
Yeah,
also um, when he loses the eye, he's what, about 10, 12 years old? Or when he
yeah,
loses the hand, I should say, the fingers. I
yeah.
think showing a 12-year-old losing an eye in an explosion would have been a little too horrific from, maybe a PG or an R.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was maybe a ratings decision, or at
That
least
sounds
a
yeah.
mass appeal decision.
Yeah, yeah. I would have liked it better if it
Yeah,
had.
well, I think it would have been much more interesting. I agree with you.
Yeah. It's like the whole like turning a blind eye to
Yeah, yeah.
do the whole thing. And I was wondering about the snakes.
Mhm.
Like what was I mean, and I know that was just kind of a continuation. He picks up the pitchfork and now
Yeah.
the snakes are
Well, exactly.
yeah.
And as someone who I have a great affinity for reptiles, particularly snakes, I'm
Yeah.
really tired of snakes being portrayed as evil.
Yeah.
And
But that's the whole thing, is that evil was good and good was
well,
evil.
yes, yes, it was that, it was flipping the morality on its head.
Yeah.
But still, you're saying snakes are evil. Spiders are another one that get that treatment, and I am
Yeah.
morbidly arachnophobic,
Well,
so
yeah.
I don't mind it so much with spiders, but it's still kind of unfair. And I guess if I had to pick one, I'd rather they went with the snakes, because at least then I didn't have to see armies of spiders following him around, because I
No,
probably would have had to
that's
tap out if that was the case.
no. They're like, all right.
You don't think I could have finished the movie? Now, there was one other character that kind of irritated me. It was the bartender, the female bartender that he had sort of had a relationship with.
Well, she was really sad. I mean,
Well, and she was hitting on him like as he, is recovering from his girlfriend's rape and murder that he was accused of. And she's
yeah,
basically saying, why don't you have that drink at my place? Just
yeah,
really classy.
yeah. Oh, I know, no, and it all had to do with that she.
She had a thing for him since they were kids.
Well, she did, and she also didn't have. She had a lack of self-esteem,
Yeah.
and she felt like that was the only way to get people to like her was to have sex with them, and and I think that can speak to a lot of people who, I mean, that was taking it kind of in an extreme way, but
Of course.
Well,
that's kind of the whole point of the movie, is to turn a lot of things up to 11.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Because a lot of it would have worked without the horns.
Yeah,
except for certain things where he manipulates people. But the confessions would have worked, because effectively it's a situation where, it's revealed that you are in some way, or that you do something that, most people frown upon. And then, a lot of people I think they feel morally superior, so they can tell you things that they wouldn't tell most people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's one of those kind of situations. And they just kind of, took it to an exaggerated level with the horns.
Well, that's the thing, is that, I mean, and that's where the snakes and the pitchfork and all that, and even when he gets burned, and then he's all red and charred and everything. It's kind of taking it to a cliched level, but making him look on the outside what everyone is seeing. Everybody sees a devil when they look at him. So he's taking on the personification of a devil, but that is the focus, is that, the fact that they see him that way. Even the first time I took away from this movie was that I liked the concept that, that it's truth. That
the concept's great. Yeah.
Easier to open up. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, the concept is great. I love the idea.
Oh yeah, yeah. But the idea that it is easier to open up to a sinner than a saint.
Right. Exactly.
That, when you see someone who has sinned, then you feel like you can open up and say, well, so have I, and I have these, and I've done this, and I've wanted to do this, and I can certainly relate to that experience.
And actually, I can too, and I don't know if it's so much just a sinner, so to speak, as much as it is someone you kind of see as less powerful. Because, for me, I've gotten that because I'm in a wheelchair. People think I'm very easy to talk to, and they can kind of tell me things because I'm not threatening.
I can see that.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily just someone who you see is morally less than you.
Someone who is very successful and very clean, has a very clean image, is going to feel very threatening. You're going to worry about being judged by that person. Someone who is maybe not so much in one way or another,
right,
is going to feel more comfortable.
Right.
To go to.
And being, accused of rape and murder kind of puts him in that place, and they just stuck the horns on him to write that much bigger.
Oh yes, exactly. Yeah.
And with regard to the horns, I have to wonder if he did it to himself, much like in Metamorphosis, and I will remember the author eventually. Where he kind of, the character Metamorphosis feels like he's, worthless and ineffectual, and he wakes up as a bug. Ig says, just before he goes to bed, he's talking about how he's been demonized by the community, and says, and now I had to look the part.
Yeah.
And he wakes up with the horns. Now, he could have been talking in past tense, but he may have also wished them on himself. And that's really when I warmed up to the movie, because, like I said, I didn't like Egg at the beginning, and I just was kind of iffy on the film.
Yeah.
But when he got to the doctor's office, I started to warm up.
Well, that's great.
Because that's really when the confessions start. We had the donut scene before then, but he gets to the
Yeah.
doctor's office
And that was just
and
weird, but then you just realize that everybody is
yeah.
reacting this way.
hmm and there's a woman that is very clear about how her desire to have an interracial experience in much less politically correct terms. Um,
Yes.
and the receptionist at the doctor's office is telling him how much she wants to strangle this woman's kid who is yelling.
No.
And then the kid said something about wanting to do something
And that,
to her mother,
yes.
which was really disturbing.
Yeah. Well, it's always, little girls are, inherently, because they can be so sweet and innocent, when they do anything, then it's just 10 times creepier. So,
So he's talking to this doctor, and he basically begs the doctor to try to saw the horns off.
mhm.
And that cues a flashback to how he met Marin.
Oh yeah.
And this is another issue I had. It was a nice scene, it was very informative. It filled in a lot of blanks. It
Yeah.
just dragged on way too long.
Yeah.
It felt like it was a good 45 minutes. We didn't need
Yeah.
to be stuck in a flashback for quite that long.
Yeah. And then when he comes to again, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. He was passed out.
And he wakes up with the saw in the
So it's
horn,
the
which I
stuff,
love.
just started to, and then stop. You said we could stop and have sex. And,
The doctor is shagging the nurse while he's laying there with the saw embedded in the horn. It almost made up for the dragging flashback scene.
yeah.
Oh, also, in the dragging flashback scene, young Ig and young Lee are looking at a couple of adult magazines, which
Mhm.
seems so old-fashioned now. And I
Yeah.
had quite the collection. I probably still have them around here somewhere, but it just seems so weird now. Magazines.
It's just a simpler time. Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, and also it was weird seeing another actor play young Dan Radcliffe.
Well, I know, because then
When,
I'm like, well, that's not what he looks like.
exactly. We know what he looked like at that age.
I know.
And then we find out something interesting. Not everyone can see the horns.
Well, that's the thing, and I had a hard time with that at first because the only person who can't see the horns is
hmm
Lee.
hmm
And at first, Ig thinks that it's because Lee is just too good.
Yeah, he
That
doesn't have
he
any
has no
secrets.
inner demons.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way that's true. Not
Well,
that Lee was good, but that he was protected by goodness.
yeah. Well, we find out why later. But
Yeah.
initially, I completely bought the conceit that, people who weren't hiding anything couldn't see the horns.
Ah,
And then
yeah.
it gets a little later in the film, and we find out that, yes, he was hiding something, and he was maybe a little guilty about it. So,
Yeah.
and then I started to wonder why he couldn't see the horn, and then it's explained. And the book was released in 2010,
Yeah.
a couple years after the Harry Potter series ended. And the conceit with the necklace, and I'm not going to explain too much of it because it is a really nice surprise. But it reminded me a lot of Lily's love protecting Harry.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. But yeah. Um, well, there was a lot of, even in the color schemes, that hinted at Harry Potter. Like he was always with
Hmm.
a maroon
Uh,
sweatshirt and yellow hoodie.
That was
And
the maroon and gold was intentional from what I was reading.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was just a nod to Harry Potter because I mean,
yeah,
as much as he has tried to escape, and I hope he does because he is a very talented actor and I like him a
yeah.
lot. And he's done some good work, but he is always going to be Harry. It's just
Well, he needs to embrace the Harry Potter like does the horns.
either that or go into voice work like Mark Hamill did. Because that's why Mark Hamill went into voice work because he was trying to escape
Because
Luke. He was trying to escape Luke
yeah.
Skywalker. Oh, by the way, Merrin, Juno Temple's character, the girlfriend, was named after Father Merrin from The Exorcist,
I did read that. Yeah, yeah. I didn't know
which I thought was a
till
nice
after.
touch. Also, Ig is
Yeah.
short for Ignatius, which is Latin for
Yeah.
fiery one,
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
root of ignite, which of course, for someone who is a demon, it
Yeah.
fits
Who
very
is
nicely.
yeah. No, and his last name is Parrish, which is
Yeah,
you know, a
close to
little,
parish. Yeah, or was it parish or
yeah,
parish? Or were they playing
Parrish.
both? It's a
Which I guess could go either as in the religious
yeah,
parish
or
or
die.
that parish. Yeah. So yeah, there was a lot of and I read of things about like license plates for referring to Bible
It's a lot of
verses.
biblical references in the license
Yes,
plates.
yeah.
Although when I was reading the verses, they really didn't seem to fit the movie very well. They didn't really seem terribly relevant.
Yeah, it's kind of like they picked something like that kind of sort of fit the scene, but
Mhm.
wasn't necessarily that poetic.
Yeah. It didn't seem terribly associated with the film, or at least or not a commentary on the film.
Yeah, but but they tried.
Yeah, yeah. At this point in the film, the bartender who he sleeps with earlier in the film reveals that she'd always had a thing for him since they were kids.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was convinced that she did it.
Oh, okay.
I thought, okay, there's the motive. She's guilty because it fits that they would have this side character you don't really know turn out to be the killer.
Yeah.
Pleasantly surprised I was wrong about that because I didn't believe for a second that Egg did it. I didn't believe for a second that the brother did it, who they tried to cast a little guilt on, and he did have a little bit of guilt,
Yeah.
but he didn't kill her, and I didn't believe he did for a second.
Yeah. I yeah, and this just has to do with how I watch movies. That I a lot of times I try not to figure it out. Like I'm like I'm along for the ride,
Uh,
whoever it is.
I wish I could do that because I don't have a suspension of disbelief. I can't just go along for the ride. I have to analyze it the entire way.
You're a better critic than I, So, yeah.
Now, there was also a gag with two cops in the movie that seemed a bit surprising at first, because at first it seems like it's very homophobic, where you find out these
Yeah.
two asshole cops were secretly gay.
Yeah.
But they fortunately corrected it later in the film in another scene, which I thought was a really nice touch, where he basically
Yeah.
gives them permission.
Yeah. That something that they thought was a sin.
Mhm.
Now the devil is telling them,
Mhm.
no, go for it.
Mhm.
And they do.
And at this point, he effectively causes his brother to overdose because he finds out that his brother didn't kill her, but he kind of left her alone when she was killed.
Yeah.
And he says he had to punish him to help him, which didn't make a lot of sense.
Well, I actually did, and I think it actually speaks a lot to like addictions that he had to make him face his demons in order to set him free.
Did he clean up after that? Did he stop using?
Um,
Or did
I
they not?
think that was the intention. I mean,
Okay.
the movie didn't go that far. It
Okay.
wouldn't
Well, if
show
that's the
it,
case, then
whatever.
okay.
But in that moment, yeah, it was a turning point for him, and
Mhm.
then
Okay.
because he had been using more and more to
Mhm.
cover up his, all these feelings of guilt, and he couldn't face what he'd done, and by making him face it and go through hell,
Mhm.
he came out and he's like, okay, yeah, what I did was wrong, but I'm here for you, brother.
Mhm.
So
Okay, it makes a lot more sense. At the time, it just seemed like straight up revenge, where he, like he was kind of blaming him for the death.
I mean, like in a way, it could be, but I think mostly, it did hurt him to do it, but he felt like he had to make him face what he'd
Mhm.
done,
Yeah.
his part in it.
Yeah.
And, so
And here's where we, of course, find out the real killer, which I was very surprised by, and I'm not going to reveal it because I was very surprised.
okay, yeah,
Although the character did seem to sort of take a very sudden turn.
he did, and on a subsequent viewing, because I watched it twice. Like watching it and knowing who it was, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, and now I get it.
Because he's kind of
That-
the moral center for a lot of the film.
yeah,
And I like that
or at
commentary
least yeah,
where that character turns out to be evil. But he
yeah,
turns from the moral center to a complete evil monster on a dime. There's no slow turn, there's no
yeah.
gradation. He's just pure good, pure evil.
Well, that's the thing, and the good was just a show. That's
Yeah.
the thing, is that the evil was always there.
Yeah. Although I did like the symmetry of how that character supposedly tried to kill Egg, because it referenced an earlier scene.
Oh, I'm trying to remember what.
The way
The,
in which Egg was almost killed was very similar to how Egg almost died earlier in the film, or in a flashback scene, I should say.
I'm
It's
trying to
actually at the
remember.
same location.
Okay. Now I get it. Yeah, so, okay. I didn't even make the connection before too, but
Hmm.
yeah.
And I loved the makeup when Egg shows up all burned after the
Oh yeah.
accident. The makeup in this movie was brilliant. Some of the CG was a little cheesy, particularly the snakes.
And I read that. I mean, that I didn't really notice, and again, I don't necessarily look for that kind of thing.
I was okay with the snakes up until the end where they're wrapped around the killer.
Yeah, actually, that was the one time when I'm like, but at that point, I'm like, just okay, just get it over with. All right.
Bad CG is just kind of a pet peeve of mine.
Mhm. Yeah. But I think at some points they used real snakes. But then there was other times they used the
And you can easily, have them trailing behind looking like they're following him. That's easy to do with real snakes.
yeah.
When, you have about 5 of them wrapping around strangling a character, you'd really kind of want to go CG, I think, in that case.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I really liked Marin's reason for not marrying Egg. And,
Oh,
the
yeah.
explanation for that whole turn. Because I felt horrible for him when she
Well,
broke up
yeah.
with him. I think it's probably the only time I really sympathized with Egg.
Yeah.
So
That,
when it's finally revealed why she did that, I was really surprised, and it was nicely done.
yeah. And it does make the cheesy line at the beginning make more sense anyway, you know. Although, I hate that line, but
Ha.
that's just me.
Also, why did Lee not remember killing Egg?
Because nobody could remember
Oh, that's
what they
right.
told him and what they did when he had the horns.
Yes, right.
So,
So, okay, that makes sense. Because he agrees to take a walk with the guy who he just tried to kill. You know,
yeah.
it seemed a little stupid. Because clearly this guy's
It
going to
could
get
have been,
revenge.
yeah, but no. And
But that makes sense that, yeah, I had forgotten that when people are looking at him, the horns don't stick for some reason. They
yeah,
look away and they forget he has horns.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, speaking of cheesy effects, when the cop's head is blown off, it was a great what the fuck moment, but the effect was horribly cheesy.
I do like, and this is like the sick part of me, but I did like the killer's reaction.
Yeah. Well, just overall, it was a great jump scare and a great what the fuck. But the effect was a little iffy. But it was a quick
Yeah,
shot. And no
yeah,
worse than the snakes.
that's true. I mean, that's the thing is that it's what you pay attention to.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm nitpicking because that's what I do.
Well, yeah.
Also, when they're fighting and Egg runs at Lee and supposedly gores him. I'm giving up on the spoilers now. We're trying to avoid spoilers.
I know it's.
When he supposedly gores Lee with his horn,
Mhm.
it looked to me like Lee was kind of between them. But then we find out that one went right through him.
Okay.
Just overanalyzing the stunt, I suppose.
Yeah.
Also, when he dies at the end, wouldn't putting the cross back on have theoretically saved him?
Well,
I,
and I think I thought about that like
hmm.
the first time I watched it, but that it made sense that
Well, poetically, it makes sense.
yeah, and I think I was looking at it more from a poetic standpoint than
Yeah. Well, it's the
anything.
whole, sacrificing himself for love, and which,
Yeah.
see, your reaction to the line at the beginning was kind of my reaction to that trope. I'm
Oh, okay.
just kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to have seen something a little more original at the end.
Yeah, that's true. And
So, yeah. If he had put the cross back on and saved him and decided he was gonna live for her, that would have been a better ending.
yeah, I can see that. And
The book ending it with the same scene was a nice touch, and finally getting the explanation for that what seemed like a horribly out of place line. Yeah, I knew the title, I knew what the movie was about, but in the
Yeah.
beginning, I still heard that line as, you're supposed to. Yeah, I didn't put it together at the beginning, but at the end,
Okay.
when she says it, it makes perfect sense.
But I think it lost me. I came back to it, but it lost me for a moment at that line. And I'm like, oh, come on. I heard that before when Kyra Sedgwick said that to John Travolta.
I mean, I know the scene you're talking about. I can't remember the line. It went right past me. It really made no
Yeah.
impression on me, good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I don't know. I don't know why it bothers me so much.
Oh, with regard to my wondering if he was influenced by the Lily's love saving Harry. There is a Harry Potter reference in the book. There's a line that says her face was framed by two wings of lank black hair that curled under a long pointed chin. So she looked like the female version of the wizard who was always giving Harry Potter such a hard time in the movies. And he'd been waiting to read the books to the children he and Marin had together. So, the author was
Yeah.
aware of Potter. And I don't know
Okay.
if he didn't name Snape because he wasn't familiar enough, or just because Ig wouldn't have been familiar enough with them.
Or maybe he just didn't want to compare a girl to looking like Snape. I don't know.
This is true, yeah. Also, kind of shows how the casting went in a very different direction, because Juno Temple looks nothing like that description. Obviously, she looks nothing like Alan Rickman, unfortunately, but also she looks nothing like that
Oh,
description. She's a
okay.
redhead. She has curly red hair.
Yeah.
So clearly they went in a different direction. Not a big deal, but it's just kind of surprising to see that line in reference to Marin and, having, Juno Temple with red curly hair in my head as Marin. Oh, I'm done with my notes.
I think I am too.
You've gotten everything covered?
I think so.
All right. No real room for any sequels, and it's way too soon for a remake, so we'll skip over sequels and remakes. And so on to Brains. Now, I really liked it. I did have a couple of issues here and there. I didn't like Egg. I would have liked to have thought he was guilty. The flashback was overall too long, but I am going to recommend it. I'm going to go 4.
You know what? Even though the first time I'm like, I was like nails on a chalkboard, but it won me over so much afterward, though, that was my first review, but I think I'm gonna go 5 because I really really like it, and it has one of my favorite lines in it. Actually, that's the one thing in my notes that I missed. That
kind of fitting that we're on to what have we learned. So.
Oh, okay. That's right. And the line that I liked so much in it was, it says, people say you should always do the right thing, but sometimes there is no right thing, and you just have to pick the sin you can live with.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know exactly what I've learned from that, but it's made me think about it. And I will learn something eventually, at least.
And I learned that sometimes you gotta be a little evil to do good. So, Jen, thanks for joining me this week. Tell us a little bit about Haunt Valley.
Oh, gosh. It's kind of in a beginning stage, and I don't know exactly where it's going, but I am, well, just like this movie, I am embracing my dark side. After trying to transition out of porn, now I'm embracing my dark side and going to my love of Halloween and everything to do with that. And I'm just following that wherever it goes, which sounds really cheesy, and I need a better line for that. A better description for this.
And we can find that at hauntvalley.com?
Exactly, yes.
All right, so until next time, when presumably Scotto will be back, and we'll be starting our, well, I'm going to call it our part 3 three-parter. That will make more sense hopefully next time, when we'll be reviewing Sharknado 3. Go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And, of course, if you enjoy the show, spread the word. Give us a little word of mouth. Of course, we appreciate all of the listeners we have now, but more would be better.
More is always better.
You also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review, up through the upcoming trilogy. Like I said, we're probably going to crowbar Logan's Run in there afterwards. You also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form, and of course the recommendations list. I had heard very good things about this movie going in, and then I saw some of the reviews on IMDb, and then messaging on Facebook, and you'd said you'd fallen in love with it after seeing it a second time, so I really didn't know what to expect in terms of the rec list.
I know. Well, and I feel like, I don't know. The reviews, I'm like, you just don't get it, do you?
Well, most of them said it was kind of odd tonally. You know, the tone changes throughout. That's kind of the thing I like, is it starts off more comedic and it gets darker as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole. Yeah, again, I feel like,
They missed the point.
Yeah, exactly.
You can email us zombietakeout@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-ZTO1 or for the alphanumerically challenged,
You can go fuck yourself.
414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you will always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There you are.
Lately, I can be pretty fucking persuasive.
Like I said, we're probably going to crowbar Logan's Run in there afterwards, and spread, and of course lengthen it from there, and of course move out from. I'm just gonna let that after Logan's Run.